Get to know pro initiator and stuff, so 12 attendees. Okay. Okay, just a minute there. It's just a clarity. Oh, Larryfish, quick imagine. So this is. Okay.
Great.
Top.
Okay, Dave, Corda to Sulagum, which have Lum Bio and Show to Fodger and Show again, session Eolais the Hitter Blina and Blin Shakun. So to me the kind of Tish Mori Quavenori and Stalti Blina Tree. So just you're very welcome to tonight's TY information night. This is for parents, guardians, and students of our current third year students going into fourth year. Just to give you a taste of what's to come next year. First of all, just to make sure everybody can hear me, if somebody could put a thumbs up in the chat function to the right hand side, you will have a chance to ask questions during it, where you can write in the questions on Shin, fill in a question, a screeve in Shin, and we'll do our best to answer those questions at the very end. So just if somebody there could just put a thumbs up, and we'll get started once I know that everybody can hear me. So just 2 seconds there. We still have people coming in online, so if somebody there could just type in or put a thumbs up to say yes, Owen to Gachra Igart Clusham who Agus will Gachra Igubber. Okay. So finally, truck a second. I'll just wait half a minute to a minute just for a few more people to come in. And again, if somebody there, I think, yeah, we're Igubber. Yeah, brilliant. Okay, to Gachra Igubber, come on. We're ready to go. So look, Erdús, I'm private to Michigan raw now, more private in a sculla, Gulan, I need to be on Tovduk. Transition year to me is very important. I see a huge, I suppose, growth, development in students going from third year, doing TY and into fifth year. And they're ready then, I suppose, to tackle, you know, Galvli and Duchlon, 2 challenging years as they go on to their fifth and sixth year. So there's a lot of that time is important for those students. Dumsa, Murphree, there's a few things I'd just like to highlight, I suppose. Darren Deeney's Blinamaka, it's a year out, it depends or put away. There's a bit of that, yeah, we try a lot of different things. But things like core subjects, on Gaelga, on Berla, on Mata, Agsni Tiangaka, the languages. We continue on with the Leaving Cert course in TY. So it's very important for parents and guardians and students to understand that when you're in TY, you know, students should not be leaving school early, you know, because maybe the next class there's not much happening on, but then there's a maths class after that. The bottom line for me is, you know, to Tinnervishal being the Grodnishal. So when attendance is low, grades are low. And that carries on starting in fourth year. It's a 3-year Leaving Cert course in those core subjects. So on top of just on, I suppose, on scale to put out that message that it's important to be in class every day, no matter what's happening, because you will have your core subjects, those 3 or 4 subjects, happening at different times each day. Ivrido, it's a great year for trying loads of things, from musicals to school tours, and Kieran will be going through this in a second. It's a super year to try things. So that's what the message I want to get across. Try everything. Agus, Ivri Tree, I suppose, been Takiukt on Pobble, Natishmore, Tassel, Wingugir. We need your support with this year, ranging from the musical to TY interviews at the end of the year. It's important for us that we get as much support as we can to help us deliver the best possible year. So, Ernoversion to Micon Subcurl Mchaint Hain, Agsamicon on microphone who to Kieran Necklum, Cord or Clor and Hidvlina, Tashidin Shot of Fada, to Clor, Anwakar Helige, Harna Blinta, and Trumidesh Do Kindlish. Just more Eolais, as information for you, this information session is being recorded and will be available on the school website as well. And as I said, if you have any questions during this event, please type them in and we'll do our best to answer them at the end of the session. So we're looking at a session of 45-50 minutes, and hopefully Bemid Creek Ninja. Okay, Gramina Magav as Bemid Kaintliv Egandera.
Gramina Magav Dawn. So Smisha Kieran Colran is Moonshore, Berla, August Frankie Schmeis Skull. A fresh and Tommy Mark Ward or na Hijravlina. So as well as teaching French and English in the school, I have a role here as the transition year coordinator as well. And as Owen said, I have been doing this for a number of years. While it can be a challenging role, like Owen had mentioned at the beginning of the talk, it can be a privileged role as well. It's of any year in the school for students, we definitely probably see the biggest development academically, but more so from a personal point of view. A lot of the students now who are in transition year at the moment, they're coming to the end of the year. We've only got a few weeks left. And honestly, the growth that we've seen in these students from last year, where they would have been in third year and preparing for their junior cycle exams, to now is staggering in cases. So it is, students develop, they go from being a junior student in the school to very much being in the mindset for being a senior student during transition year and by the end of it. Okay, so let's move on. So Sukanch enocht by three kuj priv kujan by mekanchvina diffriathi snidgervlian, all is practical agus kunas olvuchani ayina. So in this evening's talk, I'll be looking at the differences in transition year to other years, some of the practical information that's useful for you to know at the moment, and also how to best prepare for transition year, both on the parent side and on the student side. So, Chantusacher les Shode and Roch's mission na Hijravlina. Furbridge Parson the Social as Ezjachasul and Dalta Chohu, Agsida Olwood and Ron Fortioch Nalsploch, Fragrox Sochi. So to develop the student in a personal, social and educational way, and to assist them in their ability to independently and responsibly participate in society. So I suppose a way of looking at the transition year is it's in the junior cycle, we are preparing them for things like exams, how to follow curriculums and so on. The junior cycle then is a preparation for, it's practice for the Leaving Cert in front of them. And once fifth year starts, there is obviously a lot of pressure on students to perform, to reach certain grades, to eventually gain points and things like that. This is a gap year in the middle of their schooling. It's a year where there will be academically, we will be continuing obviously with their studies, and they'll be learning in different ways. There'll be a lot more project work and things like that going on in classes. We bring a lot of, for example, this year we have one of the subjects we have is philosophy in the school, and a couple of our students have actually qualified to go to the All-Ireland Philosophy Awards, and they would have only started that back in September. Now, philosophy is a subject that's taught in many European countries as part of their core subjects. So we look out there, see what's available, see what we can bring into the school, and we do put subjects like that into the timetable. And the students find that after going through this year, you know, their viewpoint or the way that they look at things, the way they look at the world has very often changed in a very, very positive way. Yeah, a number of others. So I suppose Buntosh na Hijravlina and some of the advantages of the year, personal development. So instead of just talking about grades and exams and things like that, we look at what the students' interests are. We have things like the Gashka Presence Award, which is a part of the year, very important part of the year. And a lot of our students who will do well in transition year will follow that throughout the year. We will be talking to students about that, but again, that's part of what parents and students can start looking at the moment. It can complement some of the work, some of the very positive work the students are doing already. I'll talk to you a little bit about that later on. Professional development. This is the students in transition year get an opportunity to do 3 work placements in the year. And the way I explain this is to students and parents is that it's literally the only time you're ever going to get the opportunity to go to, let it be a solicitor's office or an architect's office or whatever it might be, and go in and actually, you know, be in that work environment and experience that without actually having to go to university and get a degree and get a master's and then eventually get interviews for a job. They can actually try out work, which none of us, I never did the transition year when I was in school. So a lot of it, for me anyway, when I was going out into the world of work, was a shot in the dark. I was trying new things, but I really had no experience of work besides maybe in the hospitality sector. But for students doing transition year, they will get that opportunity. So that it should be used that way. It should be used as an opportunity. So just some of the statistics that come out regarding the transition year, the points for their Leaving Cert are higher. The average student who does transition year gets 363 points. This is on a national scale in their Leaving Cert, whereas in those who don't get lower. Going on to third level, again, 87% who do transition year will go on to third level, whereas those who don't, it's down to 76%. And again, our work experience, more people are full-time employed who have done the transition year than who didn't do the transition year. These statistics come from the ESRI and the DES. So an bliana tá agan, tá críomhar agan mar dúirt ón. So Gaeilge, Béarla, Mata, Frankish, New Spanish, Sinead na críomhar. By na scoláirí glanach Rilo sin. So they will have these core subjects that they'll be continuing on with. And as Owen said, we start the Leaving Cert in transition year in those subjects. So it's very, very important that attendance is good. Things like Oberbalia, students do get Oberbalia. You know, there's not as much pressure on them as possibly in other years, but we do want to make sure that they progress in the year, and that, you know, for students who just stop showing up or you know, making excuses at home, it's not worth going in, mom, or it's not worth going in, dad. Those are the students who there's a danger there that they'll fall off a cliff. By the time they get to fifth year, they've gone so far back in the subject that, you know, they won't have the option of going for the higher options for the Leaving Cert. Chamala sin tá galore over Raunachagan, and you see a list of them there in front of you. So the year that we have is broken up into three parts, into 3 timetables. They four timetables by 7 weeks. They get to experience all of those subjects, and the idea is that come Easter of next year, your son or daughter will have tasted or tried all of the subjects that the school has available for the Leaving Cert program. And when they're making their decisions on what they want to study for their Leaving Cert, it'll be an educated decision.
So just to check the shocker, métá rá ag Kieran on sin. So to make sure I'm clarified at the moment, I'm putting together a timetable for next year, and basically the students will continue on, as I said, le Gaeilge, leis an Béarla, leis an Mata, and Frankish, New and Spanish. Agus be sheets in the Dilraig and Vleen Erfad. So students will continue on from September to June in their core subjects in Príomh Ábhar. As Kieran said, mar dúirt sin, tá ábhar eile, tá fiúntric, enterprise, careers, Garan Vaha leis an Córa with the school guidance counsellor, where they're getting information about the different careers that they can take. And that's really important, because in March of next year, we'll be online again, but we'll be a bit more serious, I suppose, at that point, where we'll be looking at subject options for 5th year. And the important thing is that the students have attended the guidance counselling classes, and also that they've done the taster options. As you can see, are clay on the left hand side and over around the choice subjects. So we have a wide range of choice subjects in the school, and what the students will do is they will taste 4 or 5 of these subjects for, as Kieran said, for a number of weeks, and then they'll move on to a second timetable where they'll get a taster of another 4 or 5 subjects, and so on. And le cún of day begna hover round like a galir daintacha no Bl.4, if they'll have tasted those subjects, every one of them by March, where they will then be asked to, in preference, pick the options that they would like to, subjects they would like to have for next year. So it's just really important that you see, yeah, there's core subjects going on, there's optional subjects which are equally as important to decide what you do in 5th year, but then, as Kieran was saying, there's a social element and a developmental side to TY, and they're the subjects on the right hand side, as you can see there, where you get to try new things, enjoy things, and maybe pick up an idea or two where you want to go in your career from those subjects as well. So, congratulations, Kieran.
Good. Okay, so gníomhaíocht the seach curriculum. So seo they count in really is more a one is na scullery sauce of assembly. And so the extracurricular activities, the year is full of them. What we're trying to give your son or our daughter as much exposure to different experiences. You know, let them be sports, let them be with charities. You know, we invite a lot of organizations into the school to do workshops and things like that. I'm at the moment just putting together the end of year program for the last month, and literally every day of this month we have different activities going on for them. And very often it's just, you know, you might see an instant reaction. I know, for example, like I was saying, the philosophy classes, once we started the philosophy in the school, we found that students would do their 7 weeks and they got such enjoyment out of it that they would ask, look, can we continue with this? So now, as well as having that sort of, you know, 7-week block that students do, there's an extra, we call it the intermediate group. And these will be students who would like to continue on. We don't want to just stop, stonewall them at that stage. So we do organise extra classes like that where students show an interest. But an awful lot of the experiences, I suppose, that we're trying to expose your children to are things that will possibly only plant a seed now that may come to fruition in a number of years. For example, next week we're having a group from NUIG are coming in running a 2-day workshop for girls in coding. And again, it's an area that, you know, isn't taken up by many girls. So but these types of things, it might be a number of years down the line, but these types of experiences, very often I'll meet students on the street or when I'm, you know, who've left the school, and they'll talk about an experience they had in TY, and you know, it was a formative experience for them. They explained that, look, because of what they did, they realized either A, that was definitely not for me, or B, it was something that they needed to pursue, or they needed to look into more. And it might take them a bit longer to actually look into that, but you know, very often they've been incredibly positive experiences they would have had in the year. Now, we do have the headline activities as well. This year we had the Kjol drama, or the musical. We had the town hall booked for 3 days. It was an unbelievable experience for the students. They're still talking about it all the time. And again, things like confidence, the amount of students who, you know, if you told them at the beginning of the year they'd be standing on stage, singing along with their classmates in their new class groups and getting standing ovations for the 3 days, they wouldn't have believed you. Other things like cultural experiences, we do look at a trip abroad every year. This year we went to Italy on a ski trip. And again, that's probably the first time a lot of these children will have ever been on a trip away from their parents and so on. So it is a huge deal for them. And like I said, when I meet ex-students, you know, be it outside the school, it is one of those things that very often they'll mention, that they'll say, oh my God, I watched that shaft in a chamach le chéile and Mosinidal. It was just dochrecha. And even these will be students who've gone on many trips since. But again, it's a formative experience that they have. So there's a number of the experiences there. We also there's a few online courses. Now these would have become very popular during COVID, obviously. A lot of them have gone back to being physical ones, but at the moment the RCSI, the Royal College of Surgeons, they still run an online course every year. The Bar of Ireland as well, they have an online course that students can pursue as well. There's other ones like the STEPS Engineering Your Future. Anyone who's interested in engineering, they can do that in either NUIG or GMIT. The Garda Síochána run a TY program. The Óglaigh na hÉireann run TY program. Now, the places on a number of these courses are limited. You know, they might offer 30 places to the entire county or whatever. But we always send students on them. So again, if there's an area that is of interest to you already, or that your son or daughter is already thinking about, you know, give us a heads up. You can look into it on your own, but you can certainly come to me and we can make an application based on that. You know, there's on our program, there's a finite number of activities, but feel free, if you see that there's something that you'd really like your son or daughter to be involved in. You know, I have some parents who'll come to me and say, look, I'd like to send my son or daughter, you know, if they can financially afford it, maybe abroad for 3 weeks. It could be to France or Spain or something like that. Again, this is the year to do that sort of stuff in. You know, we've had students going to Africa, building schools. We've had students spending loads of time around Europe, and we don't want them to spend the entire year and obviously miss out on other classes. But this is a year where if you're thinking of something, it won't disrupt their schooling as much as other years would. And obviously, if they spend 3 weeks, let it be in Spain or France or whatever, they're going to come back with a massive amount of knowledge and appreciation for a language like that. Now, obviously, this is all for families who are in a financial position where that would be possible. For many, that wouldn't be the case. Okay, just this is just, and I was putting this together a little bit earlier. These are just some of the activities that we ran for the transition year group this year. When you start going back over it, new ones, you start remembering some of the new ones that we brought in during the year. The Kjol drum, as I said, was very good. We've Dromador in. The Goshka Award, we have about 40 students following that at the moment in the year. We took a group to the Ploughing Championships. We have a group working with Young St. Vincent de Paul. We went skiing. We took another group to Killary for a couple of nights doing adventure activities. There's spiritual retreats. There's some trips also that happen within departments. So we had, for example, the history and the art department ran a trip to Glasnevin Cemetery and Hugh Lane Gallery in Dublin. So there will be, we'll come to the cost of the Idirlín Galua, but there will be, outside of that, sometimes departments will organise little trips on their own as well. They'll be independent of the programme, but that'll be very much optional. They give students, look, it might be €10 or to €15, something like that. But sometimes some of the departments will run things like that. This year we've got a group, we're going to be going to base sports in a couple of weeks for a day up there. We're going on a walk to Diamond Hill. And you see, so basically there's a load, our program is ever changing. When I started out in this role, the Idirlín was a lot smaller. It was O'Hevan made sculleries of Leon and Wadney Slew. So I started in this role when we were on the Tuam Road. And the school was a lot smaller, the groups were a lot smaller, and the Idirlín was a lot smaller. So I think at the time it was a small monetary cost to it, but that was reflected in what they were actually doing. There was a lot of inviting people to come in and talk, but if you have endless talks, students, I don't think were engaged that much in a lot of it. Since we moved to the new school, we have looked at the Idirlín as an area that we could develop and improve and make better. And like Geragach Blian, I put out a questionnaire to the students who've just completed their Idirlín, and they will recommend or give comments on all the different activities that we've done. And ones that don't make the grade, we take out. And other one, and we try new things. Like we had started fencing last year. Now that's not putting up posts to stop your cows leaving the field, but the fencing, like you'd see them doing in the Olympics. And we've had it in now for the second year. Things like that students really, really enjoy, and it's an experience that they probably won't get to do otherwise. We're involved in a lot of charities. Every year we do a collection for the Special Olympics in Galway. And again, we're trying to sort of instill an understanding of community and, that students, the school is where a lot of students, their world exists, but that there is a big wide world out there. We try to get them as involved as possible with charities and things like that during the year. So Shin Bogan done diffri of Fuin Blian, in Ishbranamish Bogan Olas Practicula. So I say in Tahi Ibra Kuj Fear War the Idirlín. So the work experience placements are a huge part of the Idirlín, as I said. It's a real opportunity for students to gain very valuable experience in the workplace. There are 3 placements in the year, each lasts 10 weeks, and they take place every Wednesday during the school year. The students organize this themselves. Now, themselves meaning with their parents, with their family, with their neighbors, whoever it might be. Most people, we're Irish, so everyone's sort of connected to everyone else in lots of ways. So whatever area your son or daughter is showing any interest in, I can tell you, we don't send out a list of all the companies for GDPR reasons that have taken students before, but pretty much any company I've heard of in Galway have taken our students in the past. So it's only a case of getting up and asking. It's a lot of companies will have a transition year program in their actual companies. Well, they'll be expecting students to come to them and ask for placements. So the other thing to remember is that while the student is working in a workplace, they're fully covered by the GRETB insurance. So that there's an indemnity for all of our students, that if something was to happen in the workplace, they're fully covered by the GRETB insurance. That's really important to know for employers as well. But like I said, it's a real opportunity. Absolutely let them get a job in hospitality or in a supermarket that could turn into a summer job. And, you know, they mightn't be going to the bank and mum and dad as much if that was the case. But, you know, also look at, there's 3 placements here. So definitely a couple of them, try to get them to look at areas that they might be of interest in. Things like going to Bunsculliney. A lot of primary schools will take back students who've gone through that school as a student in the TY programs. So if they're showing any interest in that, and again, it can be a very positive experience for a student, or just as importantly, we've had students who've said after the first day, there's no way in the world I want to be a teacher. And that's important learning too, because otherwise they might have gone through the entire rigmarole of doing a degree and, you know, going on and getting a qualification, and only then realizing that it's not for them. So, you know, try to talk to them, quiz them, see how their grades are going in certain areas, see what direction they're probably veering in. And I can guarantee that there's a business out there that they could apply for and get a placement with, and that will give them vital and very valuable experience in deciding their future. Just what he'd mass new in Idriveen, the way we look at the Idriveen, the assessment of it, it's not fully down to academic at all. You know, we have a lot of students who are very strong in maths, English, French, or whatever. This Blian isn't about that. The students that we see really starring or really coming out of their shell in Mlíana, it's not necessarily the most academic at all. It's students who are willing to sort of put themselves out there. They're coming to school every day. Their chinruf is orth. They're really, you know, with the work experience, they're throwing their lot in and they're doing great in that. And the feedback we get from employers is excellent. They're showing up and they're doing their oberbalia, which is really important. During a Blian fresh, and they put together what we call a portfolio. So it's like a scrapbook of their year, their experiences in the year. And based on that, they'll be interviewed by parents at the end of the year also. But we also look at extracurricular activities, and the students who are involved in those activities, you know, they do the best in the year. So if you fully engage, you get from transition year what you put into it. And if you find after a couple of months that, you know, your son or daughter is saying, well, there's nothing going on in there, and I didn't put my name down for anything, I don't really want to be involved in anything, and there's this activity going on, but I didn't bother going for that. What I always say to parents is the next time, now there is, the year is fully timetabled. At no point will there not be a teacher with your son or daughter. You know, they're supposed to be in classes. There's full programs. Every subject has a full plan Ibra Lahain Carablian. But the next time they're sort of given the freedom to either participate or not or whatever will be when they go to university. When they go into university, there won't be anybody telling them to go to class or telling them to do their overbody or anything like that. And they'll be given the option of joining societies or not joining society, of going to the lectures or staying in bed. So if you find that your son or daughter is not engaging and just whatever, then, you know, I'd see it as a warning shot. You probably need to engage with them and talk to them and explain to them that, look, freedom does not mean just opting out and saying no to everything. Freedom means that you need to try and explore things and give things a go. So Martha's been a scullery units is fior some Leon Shaw. Being Galorkni of the Chakra Klamaku, Creachnin Shid on Scheme Gashka, Paganashols Inta Harash on a Fostori Tahi Ibra, August Bean Chinroth and Skaku. So you see on the students who do the best, they're engaged. That's the main thing. It's engagement. If they engage, they're going to enjoy the year. If they don't engage, they're going to be the ones who are coming home saying it's boring, there's nothing going on. Okay, so just a dollar right, tá costas an idir bhliain. Im Mlíana tá sé €3.85. Now bhí orna cursus beganí nó nura, ach sin mar jóil inflation agus an costas atá gachra the dul. So there is a cost to the Blian. It's €375 per student. It's gone up a very small amount. It's behind inflation on last year, but we had to do it for the simple reason that all of our suppliers, all of our buses, all of our costs are rising the whole time. Everything is included in that regarding activities in the school, except, as I said, sometimes a department will decide during the year that there's something coming up that they hadn't seen before, and they say, well, actually, it'd be great to bring a group to this, and there might be an extra cost involved, but very often it's quite minimal. The other main cost, though, there will be, we'll be planning to do a foreign trip this year. As I said, last year we went to Italy skiing. Now, we had given the option to parents. We looked at a cheaper option also, which was to go to Spain, to Barcelona. And we intend to do the same thing with parents this year. We are very mindful of the fact that money is tight. We've all got, everyone's mortgage is rising, costs are rising. You go to the supermarket, it's crazy how much we have to spend on, daily costs. So we'll be very mindful of that with parents. I'll be looking at a couple of options for parents, and I'll be putting them before you at the beginning of the year. It'll be up for parents then to decide, well, I prefer them to go on trip A, or I prefer them to go on trip B. Based on that, we will make a decision on which trip we will go on. Just as a sort of guideline, though, this year on the ski trip, the entire week, which would have been from a Monday to a Friday, cost €850 per student, which included all the travel to and from the trip. So look, we will be, as I said, it's something we're very mindful of. We know how expensive the world is becoming. So we will be getting your input in relation to that, and parents will basically make the decision on what exactly we do in relation to foreign travel next year. In relation to payments, we also actually, I'll just see it there. We also went on a domestic trip to Killary, which was a 2-night stay. That came in, I think, at around €250. So if it was a case that they, financially, it was the ski trip was too painful, absolutely, we're saying to parents, leave that. We'll have other options on the table as well. Something like Killary, they had an amazing time back there. They had 2 nights back there, did loads of activities, had a fantastic time. So, we'll have different options there. In relation to payment, we will be sending out way to pay texts to parents regarding, first of all, the cost of the Blian, and also things like the Killary trip would also be that way. In relation to the foreign trip, we did that directly through the company that we were booking with. Okay, and payment over time is accepted also. So we understand that there might be a month where you're like, things are a bit tighter, but I'll have the money next month that I can pay it then. We'll be as understanding as we possibly can regarding that. So it's just a case of relating any issues to us, and we'll work from there. Okay. Ohívan structure na bliana. This is the way that the structure is of the school works in relation to attendance and discipline within the year. So each will have 4 class groups next year. Now, the class groups will be new class groups. This is something that is a bit of a bone of contention with students at the beginning of the year, but I would ask that parents support this. When your child arrived to our school gates on the very first day in first year, they were put into class groups, and there was no say, and there was no, I want to be my best friend, or this, that, or the other. They were just put into groups, and they adapted. They were 13 years old for the most part, and they adapted. They got in, they got on with it, they made new friends, and now they're in classes with their best friends because they made those friends since first year. We understand that the importance of making new friends and being able to develop within new groups. When they leave here, they'll go on to university. When they go on to university, they will have no say on what group that they're going to be sitting in a lecture hall with or going in doing whatever course with. When they go to work eventually, they will have no say on who they work with. None of us do. Being part of new groups is a human skill that we need to develop, and it's something that we try to develop again in 4th year. So we will be putting groups together, new groups. We do it randomly. We put groups. We try to get a bit of a balance between girls and boys, depending on how many boys and girls are in the year. But we do this randomly, and what we find is that initially there's a fair bit of kickback. Students obviously would prefer if everything just stayed the same, but there's no real potential for growth in that. So what I would ask again, parents and students, is that they hold the line, get on with it. You've now got the possibility to make some new friends, and by the end of the year, if you went out to the Idirlíon classes that we have at the moment and tried to tear them up now, after we put them together at the beginning of the year, they would, they'd absolutely reject the idea, because they've created new friends. They've made the Corja to Akus skull that Shishin Medi Higamor. So there's none of us who want our son or daughter to only have one or two friends in the school. By the end of this year, when in their new groups, they'll have a lot more than that. So, again, I'd ask parents to there will be some kickback on this, but please, explain to the student that, look, this is in your best interest, and give it time, and you'll find that as time goes on, they won't want to be anywhere else. Okay, so I suppose O'Heave on Chinrav Agzain Fibany, I suppose at the ons the skull or whatever it might be, Larian na scullery a dus leis an edgerang. So the edgerang on the gachrang groupa. Larian na edgerang shin leis an canara bliana. So there is a canara bliana, it's a year ahead. Now that's not me, I'm the program coordinator. But in relation to things like discipline or attendance, whatever our issues, it is going to be the year head who ultimately will probably be in touch with you about that. And if it's more serious or if things escalate, it'll go on to the pre-veg new and last pre-veg. But so any questions about the chlor or the program, absolutely, you can direct those towards me. I'm looking after the program, I put it together, I organize things. Students can ask questions of, could we add this, or how's about this, whatever. My door is always open for them to talk about things like that. But in relation to discipline and attendance and so on, it'll be one of the other teachers who's dealing with that. Okay, so Shin Kuj den Olas Practical Navlina. Just O'Heave on Olvuchan and Ish. So what can you be doing now preparing for next year? There's two things. The first thing is I definitely get your son or daughter to look at the Goshka Presence Award scheme. There are three main areas that each student needs to engage in. There's physical recreation, and I think this is hugely important. I know if a student doesn't have sort of an habitual or a regular physical exercise in their week, as time goes on and they go on to university, if they haven't got that sort of support, that scaffolding in their lives, you'll very often find things like bad eating habits and so on can end up causing health issues. So it is, if that's not there, it's time to put that in there. Now that could be simply going for a walk. There doesn't have to be cost on any of this stuff. You could be going for walking the dog, or going for a jog, or going for a run, or going for a swim, or something like that. If they're already, a lot of students will join a gym for the first time in transition year. I think you have to be 16 to join most gyms. So again, that's something that we really encourage, because if they can put in this sort of regular physical activity in their week, for things like physical health, mental health, and so on, we all know the importance of that. So the other thing, though, is for the Goshka Presence Award, if your son or daughter is already involved in regular physical activity, they already tick that box. You don't need to add to it. So the Goshka Presence Award can take things that already exist and they just put them into a nice, neat package. It's the only award that the president gives out in this country. I did the President's Award many, many moons ago, and I know that most of you will have heard of it before. It has a lot of currency because we've all heard about it. And if I hear that somebody has completed the President's Award, I know that student is a get up and goer. They have initiative, they have energy, they're willing to actually, work hard to achieve something. And I'd be far more likely to give that student a placement or a job down the line, I suppose, than somebody who may not have it. The second part is a personal skill. Now, again, this can be something like playing the guitar. You can pay for this if you want. You could go out and get lessons. Or again, financially, none of this necessarily needs to cost parents anything. I think that every student, for example, who's going to university should be able to cook at least 5 different meals. So it could be a case that every week they go with, whoever's the chef in the house, let it be dad or mum or their brother or sister, and maybe, practice different dishes. And they could cook for the family during the week or something like that. And if they do that for, is it 13 weeks consecutively, they have ticked that part of the award. Community involvement is another part. A lot of students are involved in sport, and they've probably been trained from when they're about 5 or 6 years old. So they've had many years of training. Now is a chance for them to actually give back to the club. It could be a case of they might talk to their coach and go out and help train the under 12s or something like that, or put the cones out every Saturday. And you can get that experience of giving rather than taking. And, you know, we see the benefits. We also have a number of charitable organisations who come to the school. Young St. Vincent de Paul come here every year. Students will get the opportunity to get involved in that. I would say also, guys don't generally get involved in charities. We always ask them, look, we've this person coming in, and all the hands going up are from girls. It's something that amongst young teenage guys, empathy isn't seen as a hugely important skill yet. Now, we all know as adults, empathy is probably one of the biggest skills anyone can develop. But it's something that we try to encourage them to do. So again, if you quiz them, what are you involved in? Have you heard of the SVP? Would you not give it a go? You know, the Bl.4 we did in town for Special Olympics, again, that's hugely important to the Special Olympics and for them to be able to function and continue functioning and doing the great work that they do. So it is the Gaisce President's Award. It's designed with the transition year in mind. So use it, see it as a way for them to get the recognition for stuff they're already doing, but also add a few strings to their bow. And by the end of the year, they'll just have more skills. They'll be better functioning, young adults in society. And then finally, an dara the Vimagir are Gumachshivik Swina Fuinish, or even Tahi Ibra. As I said, this is a great opportunity for students to gain really, really valuable experience. You can't do this. I can't go down to a solicitor's office, knock on the door and start working in there. They'd laugh me out of the place. Transition year students can do that. So use the opportunities they have. There'll be 3 placements in the year, but try not to let it be wasted and just keep, pick a shop and just keep working on that. Now, if they want to work in retail, that's absolutely fine, but try to actually say, right, how can we use this resource as best we can for your future? Okay, so Sinead on Conch or Mohiv. So enough, Vimage Branner and the Diffry of the Ta'an, Olas Practicula, August Nolvuchan. Also, I'm sure we can take any questions from you now as well. But as I said, my door is always open. I'm available on Teams. Your son or daughter know exactly who I am and how to reach me. If you have any questions, even after this evening, please feel free to contact me and I'll try and inform you as well as I can.
Gurmida Magot, Kieran and Shin, Vishin Intuk. Thanks very much, Kieran. So just to picnic there on Corridor, just in Blina, just Cormain Schlaun and Shoy, put this slide just onto Kieran's PowerPoint this evening. Just a few things that I saw of this year that really stood out for me. I suppose one was a skiing trip. I went on that myself. I suppose being principal here for 3 years, it was really important for me to get a chance to go somewhere with the students, to get to know them. And I really enjoyed it and create a bond with them. And Kjol drama, Shinrad vi an specialte, as Kieran says, it was a super event. But what it was, it leveled the field. And what I mean by that is, sometimes we know who the superstar soccer player is. We might know who's playing minor for their club. But sometimes a musical will bring up other people, other skills, other talents, and it levels that playing field, which is really important. Even going out, go Carna and Shinnig, Rohiocht as a Kaikal, we law Intuk as we know go hauling mention, and that was lovely. It did go Killery, again, as Kira mentioned, lovely place, well run, well supervised, and another chance for those students to bond like Kayla. So, Mardur Kieran, Dumpsa, it's about, as he said, a start year, we spread them out, separate them, and let them make new friends. And from our experience, it's the best way forward. I know when they go into 5th year, to talk of a base class or being with your base group, out of 29 classes in the week, they only have 3 with the base group. By 5th year, they're all picking their individual subjects and they're all doing their own thing, and that is not an issue going forward. So now is the time to start getting that right in TY. So, Shinna Maytal Rogan is Blin Intuk at our Falls on the Galti. To an crack agus spree, ag sin an prifrod, an spree agus gomanishi tatnavas, Gunyening sheet chord and nua irina blina. Agus go leanna sheet English na príomh-ábhar mar lú mehanna. So sin na príomh-rudí. Just mut in question gwibh. Tá ceismháin teachtas teach an seo céir faoi códáil don na lads ó NUIG freisin céim fá colony amháin.
Yeah, so féidir am se sin ragart. NUIG current siad san na Cearlan Chart Fall. The colony amháin marall tagan agadish go NUIG chun códáil a scape is your colony mar ní hoigan siad san súsé mar over san oscail. So the reason that coding workshop is available to girls alone next week is that the funding that the NUIG received to run these into schools is purely based, and I spoke to the lady who's running it this evening, purely based on trying to attract girls into STEM subjects, which there's a huge lack of in third level. Now, with that in mind, we have, this isn't the first year we've run that. So because of that running, we actually work with a company called IT Whiz Kids, and we run a full day workshop for both boys and girls every year with IT Whiz Kids, where they do a full day with coding and things like that in it. We also run some coding during the year through our computer classes as well. So it's not, we have other groups who work only with boys. Again, their funding is dependent on getting guys coming to, we had a group called the One Wolf, that they basically brought groups of guys together, did outdoor activities with them down in Barna Woods to try and get them to talk about, you know, issues and problems and things like areas that guys generally don't actually deal with as well as girls. So sometimes it's not our option. Obviously, we'd love to open up to everybody, but some of these organizations we work with, they're quite clear on, look, this is what we can offer. And we very often take them up on that offer, but we do try to balance things out. And if we see that the one group is receiving something and the other groups aren't, we'll try to add something to the program to write that.
Okay, good meal Michael Kieran, Pragrun Shin. Just Neil Ian Keston Ella Chucks Jack, Mota Kester Behagwiv, Marlo Kieran, just show Refus Egg Kieran Agus Fragroshe Ian Keston. If you have any questions, then I'm on to Kieran and he will do his best to get back to you with an answer. I suppose more Uncle Skur to finish up, just as I said, attendance is huge. Please make sure that your son or daughter attends school every day. Okay, that is very important. That dictates how they get on in the year. As Kieran says, they need to try everything. Often we'll have people coming to TY who maybe are too cool to try something and are too nervous to try something, and that's okay too. But really, it's brilliant if we can give them that little nudge and push to try it. Every tree, as Kieran says, events come up during the year where he'll put up a notice on Teams saying who wants to try this, spaced for 20 students. We do find na colony a an Irotis mu. We would love to see na Buckley a day of an Irot Kana Lena Himotishan. As Kieran mentioned, work placement really important. Anybody who's looking at teacher practice, please do it. We have a shortage of teachers. We need them. So I will push everybody in that way if I can, and hopefully I know we'll get Muntre Maha Amach and Shaw Lenadini Talkwin. So as last thing is, yes, talk cost slash. There is a cost with it. TY is a self-financing program, so costs have gone up considerably. Buses are the costs are crazy at the moment with buses, and all I suppose the people we deal with, they're feeling those costs as well. So unfortunately, there is a cost implication with TY as well, and we understand that. So Rudir Tarogum Tavor Dakiot and Havduk. Motas Muntigav. If you have any ideas yourself, if you feel you can add to the TY program, you might be in a position where you have a certain business or a certain type of work or a certain skill, and it might be beneficial. We would love to hear from you, and we would love to try and use your skill or your experience in some way that would benefit this TY year. Every year, different parents, guardians and students come along with different skill sets, and we'd like to avail of that if we can. So, bag Seisiún Eolais Eolais in me man for. We always have an information session, a short one, in September when the students have started their TY year, just to make sure that parents and guardians are fully aware what's happening each week. And because the timetable changes so much, it's important that you know what's going on as well, since you paid for it probably. We just want to make sure you're aware of what the setup is and how things will go on for the year. So, ik moet show fans ni ekom ein kesh just catch one. Does the school have any connections with schools in France and Spain? This would be useful when trying to organize a short trip during the TY year.
Yeah, so O'Heave Scott, we don't promote, we don't actively promote any of the companies through the school. If you type in transition year breaks France or Spain, you're going to get a lot of private companies that organize those sort of things. The school, again, we'd love to do an exchange with other schools and so on. The practicalities of doing that in this day and age, things like Garda vetting and so on, it's you'd be wrapping yourself up in so much administration red tape. It's not seen as something that the school can really follow, unlike what we probably did when I was in school myself and so on. So there are definitely companies out there. If you need any guidance, there are, if your son or daughter is studying, be it French or Spanish, if they speak to the head of those departments in the school, they will have the names of certain companies. But like I said, a simple Google search for, you know, French exchange transition year, you're going to get a lot of companies who work that way. But we don't run those through the school. There's so much stuff that has to be done that we just haven't got the capacity or ability to do in the school. You'd be far better off going the private route with that.
Okay, good morning, Margaret Kieran.
That's right.
Okay, akkoord, as je dit kunnen hokt, dat die niet zo o schacht, dan ben je aan vuur die weer Lina nog bij tafel dat je tot tafel denkt winnen een kruiler zo als begsche sus hier naar school, maar dat je back naar Arish, to me heen fall, to Kieran fall, aan zo, maar de inkest give just show reefers koen als chukumrash koevle fragri kolos kofedlen. So, version, listen, Grimila Margaret, Agslon, Agstour.
Slán le.